But let's talk about your latest book. So Unrigged: How Americans Are Battling Back to Save Democracy. We've already talked in our interview a little bit about gerrymandering. So tell me a little bit about what you found. Oh, first of all, why gerrymandering? Why is that your decision to focus on that in this project?
Well, I think that it is really one of the key things you have to understand if you want to understand why Republicans have so much power in a nation that is so closely divided. Right now, there are 50 million Americans, almost 1 in 6 of us, that live in a state in which one or both chambers of the state legislature is controlled by Republicans, even though Democrats won more votes in that state in 2018. We're talking about big key states, right? Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan. And this is where entrenched minority rule begins, because these state legislatures have the power to enact suppressive voting rules, or they can go after reproductive rights or the environment or labor laws. We've seen it time and again, the assault on collective bargaining in Wisconsin, transgender bathroom bills in North Carolina, the Emergency Manager Act in Flint in Michigan that led to the Flint water crisis and children dying of lead poisoning. All of this really starts with twisted district lines that have entrenched Republicans in power even when they win fewer votes.
Yeah. And so you've attempted to catalog efforts to fight back against this. So what forms have those come in, and how successful have they been so far?
I think one of the really exciting stories of this last 4 years has been that Americans really have stepped forth and have been battling, trying to create the kind of democracy that they want to have. You have seen 5 states, and these are unpredictable states. It's Colorado, Missouri, Utah, Ohio, and Michigan, where citizens have gotten together and pushed ballot initiatives and constitutional amendments that have won with 60-70% of the vote to install independent redistricting commissions. In Florida, you had citizens get together and work to pass Amendment 4 in 2018, which restored voting rights to 1.4 million people who had a felony conviction in Florida. That passes with 64% of the vote. Of course, the courts and the gerrymandered legislature there have done their best to try to undermine it and add a poll tax on top of it. But I think it's important to note that almost 2/3 of voters in Florida voted for fairness. They voted to expand voting rights. There are really important cases in Idaho and Nebraska, where young people have gotten together and organized campaigns that have resulted in expanding Medicaid coverage there when state legislatures had refused to do so, refused to take the Affordable Care Act money. Battles on Native American land to protect voting rights of tribes that have been extraordinarily successful in driving up turnout on Native American land, even as suppressive legislatures have tried to keep that vote down. So Americans have really come together over these last 4 years and fought back for big structural reform and fairness. There's a lot more to do.
So based on your overview of so many different efforts in a lot of different states, I know it's complicated, obviously, but do you have any advice if some sort of movement like this is in the works in a state? Is the evidence that setting up some sort of independent commission is the way to go? Is a constitutional amendment at the state level, does that seem to be required? Court cases, theoretically, to get it to the Supreme Court. What seem like the most fruitful paths based on your research so far?
So far, state Supreme Courts have proven extraordinarily helpful in Pennsylvania and North Carolina in unwinding gerrymandered maps. You've seen ballot initiatives in Michigan, in Colorado, in Utah that have been extraordinarily effective as well. I think the beauty of this, the example in Michigan, I think, is just a phenomenal one. It's one of my favorites because it started by a 27-year-old woman named Katie Fahey, who 2 days after the 2016 election, she's already looking ahead to Thanksgiving. She's fearful of flying mashed potatoes in her house with Trump and Sanders and Hillary fans in the house. And she simply goes to Facebook and she says, I want to do something about gerrymandering in Michigan. If you want to as well, join me. And out of that Facebook post, a movement grows, a redistricting revolution starts. And Katie and the people who responded to that post are the ones who organized the constitutional amendment drive. They built a campaign that collected 430,000 signatures and won in November 2018 with 62% of the vote. It's a real sign that when citizens get together, no structural barrier is too big not to kind of buckle under the collective weight of the people.
That is absolutely awesome, and any sort of good news in 2020 is nice. Obviously, even if gerrymandering were to eventually be conquered, we still have the fundamental structure of the Senate. We've got the use of the filibuster to enshrine minority rule in the Senate. We've got the Electoral College. We've got a lot of those, but this is an important one. And so anyone who wants to learn a little bit more about that battle, the book is Unrigged: How Americans Are Battling Back to Save Democracy. David Daley, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
A pleasure. Thank you.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.